Hi folks, I'm Jeff and I'm here to teach you how to play the board game Nations and its Dynasties expansion. I'll be covering the competitive 2 to 5 player mode. Dynasties specific rules will be indicated with a D in the upper left here, although there aren't that many differences when compared to the base game, so let's jump in. Nations is a civilization building game, where each player grows their own nation by building improvements and wonders, conquering battles and colonies, hiring advisors, and handling various events from world history. The game is played over 8 rounds, 2 each in 4 ages: Antiquity, Medieval, Renaissance, and Industrial. You'll grow your nation by buying cards from a central market, and deploying workers or architects on top of those cards. Success at each of these earns you victory points, also known as VPs. The player with the most VPs at the end of the game wins. We'll cover setup instructions first, but we'll wait to explain what the cards and pieces do until the next chapter. The progress cards have 4 different backs, 1 for each age. Shuffle each deck separately. The event cards also have 4 different backs. Shuffle those separately too. If you'd like a simpler game, only include cards from the base set that do not have a set symbol on the card. The Dynasties expansion requires all non-promo cards to be included for game balance. Randomly determine player order. I like to shuffle and deal the player order cards for this. Each player picks a color and takes all of their wooden pieces. Place one of your discs on the player order track in the determined order. Place discs in the same order on the heritage track, starting from 1. This will keep track of your books. Each player places one of their discs on a difficulty level. For your first play, pick Chieftain. Place your last 2 discs on value 0 of the military strength and stability tracks. Place the white round marker on the A space of Age 1, Antiquity. Place the black war marker in the war box. Fill the progress board by drawing equal rows of face-up progress cards. 4 columns are filled for 2 players, and 1 extra column is filled for each additional player. Randomly select which nations are in play by shuffling the player boards. Different Dynasties nations appear on each side of the boards, so be sure to flip them around as you shuffle. You can also use my Dynasties Selector web tool to randomly and fairly select nations without picking both sides of the same board. The link is in the description below. In reverse player order, select your starting nation. Place its board in front of you, and place a meeple on each icon on the population track. Your leftover meeples should match the starting worker count on the lower right of your board. Also place your nation's 2 Dynasties cards next to your board. Take starting food, stone, gold, and VP chips equal to the starting amount for your nation. Take the player order card according to your order, and a player aid tile. Setup is now complete. There are 6 types of resources that represent the capabilities of your nation. Gold is used to buy progress cards from the central market. Food lets you sustain more workers, win some events, and pay for famine costs every round. Stone is spent to deploy workers to buildings and military, and to hire architects. Books give extra VPs at the end of each age. These 4 transactable resources are most often gained or lost in a production step at the end of each round. Various cards have a red circle to indicate gain in this step, and a black circle to indicate loss in this step. The other 2 resources are represented with squares, and their values immediately change when workers are deployed. Military strength is used to overcome war, conquer colonies, claim battles, win events, and go earlier in player order. Any strength above 40 is counted as 40. Stability is used to mitigate war, win events, tie-break player order, and take turmoil to earn gold or switch dynasties during an action phase. Any stability above 15 is counted as 15, but negative stability can go lower than -3. You'll have to keep track yourself if it does, since the scoreboard ran out of space. We'll discuss some special rules for going below 0 on a resource near the end of the video. Let's now review the main actions you can do on your turn during the action phase. The first is to deploy a worker on one of your buildings or military, which is the primary way you will gain resources. To take this action, you'll pay the deployment cost in stone on the lower left. Then move a worker from your undeployed workers area, or from another building or military, onto the card. Adjust your value on the military or stability tracks immediately if those resources are provided by the deploy target. Don't forget to remove any military or stability values that the existing worker used to provide. In this example, the worker used to provide 4 military, but now provides 3, so you will reduce your military by 1. You can have as many workers deployed on a building or military as you wish, although only the first few will count for endgame scoring. However, if the building has a max number of workers, you can't deploy more than that number. Besides deploying workers, the other common action you'll take with your turn is buying a card from the progress board. Cards cost 1, 2, or 3 gold depending on what row they are in. We'll now discuss what happens when you buy each type of card. Buildings have a blue border. They typically provide 2 types of resources, with higher values and deployment costs appearing in the later ages. When purchased, place the building on one of your building slots. The old building or military is removed from the game, and any workers deployed there become undeployed, which might trigger military strength or stability adjustments. You are allowed to place a building on top of a military. Military has a red border. They typically provide high military strength per worker, but cost some other resource as upkeep every round. Military placement rules are the same as for buildings, and you are allowed to place a military on top of a building. Military also has a raid value. Your nation's raid value is the highest number among military cards that have at least 1 worker. So in this example, your raid value would be 4, since that is your highest deployed raid value. Battles have a gray border. All battles are functionally identical, even though they have different historical names. You may only buy a battle if you have at least 1 worker deployed on military with a raid value. When purchased, immediately gain books, food, or stone equal to your nation's raid value. So in this example, you could choose to gain 4 stone, 4 food, or 4 books, as this player has chosen. Wars have a black border. When purchased, move the war marker to your current military strength. At the end of the round, any nation with military strength less than the value of the war marker will lose resources and points, even if that nation bought the war. We'll review this more closely in the resolution phase, which is when the war takes effect. Only 1 war may be purchased each round. Colonies have a green border. They grant resources per round without needing a worker deployment, but you can only buy them if your military strength is at least the printed value on the card. When purchased, place the colony on one of your colony slots. Any old colony on that slot is removed from the game. Once purchased, colonies remain in your nation even if your military strength decreases later. Golden Ages have a yellow border. They grant some immediate resources when purchased, usually stone or books. Alternatively, you can pay any combination of transactable resources, food, stone, gold, or books, to earn a VP. The cost to do this is higher in each age. Either way, discard the Golden Age card after buying it. Some nations and cards grant a Golden Age bonus. This bonus both increases the resource gained and reduces the resource cost for a VP. In this example, a Golden Age bonus of 1 means that I can either take 3 stone from this Golden Age, or pay 2 transactable resources for a VP. Advisors have an orange border. Each advisor has a unique effect, so read the card carefully. When purchased, place the advisor on your advisor slot. Any old advisor is removed from the game. I've linked to the designer's nation's FAQ in the description below, which has rules clarifications for most cards, including almost all of the advisors. Wonders have a brown border. Normal wonders have a unique effect, but only when completed by hiring architects. We'll cover architects in the next section. When purchased, place the wonder on your wonder construction slot. Any existing wonder under construction is removed from the game, including any hired architects. Natural wonders have a slightly darker brown border. They are also initially placed on your wonder construction slot. We'll cover how to complete those in the next section as well. We've now covered the 2 most common game actions on your turn, buying a progress card and deploying a worker. We'll now review the other possible game actions. If you have a normal wonder under construction, and there is at least 1 architect available for hire, you may pay the stone cost of the leftmost unoccupied architect space on the card, placing an architect there. Different spaces may have different stone costs. A few cards and abilities let you choose to hire a private architect instead of an architect from the scoreboard. This is a separate pool that gets refilled each round that you have the card or ability. When you've placed the last architect, discard all of the architects away from the scoreboard. You can place the wonder in any empty wonder slot on your board, or over another normal wonder, removing the old wonder from the game, but you cannot place it over a natural wonder. Some cards allow you to take a special action. They will say action : to indicate this. Do what it says on the card and end your turn. For example, this action requires you to pay 2 gold to take 5 food, stone, or books. If the card says action once per round, use an X icon to mark that you've done the action for the round. Some cards can be used multiple times in a round, as long as you can pay their other costs. The Explore action is only used for natural wonders. Once you buy a natural wonder, on your next turn, you will be forced to take the Explore action. To do that, place an unused brown cube from the game box, and not from the available architects, onto the topmost unoccupied spyglass marker. That's your entire turn. On subsequent turns, you will keep doing this. On the turn when you cover the last spyglass, immediately discard all of the cubes back to the game box, and place the natural wonder on any empty wonder slot or over a normal wonder, but not over another natural wonder. Your turn is over, and you can finally take another action on your next turn. In the Dynasties expansion, there will be some turmoil cards available near the scoreboard. We'll explain how to refresh them in the maintenance phase. As an action, you can take a turmoil card, which causes your stability to decrease by 2 for the rest of the round. Update your marker on the stability track immediately. You can choose one of 2 benefits for doing this. The simpler one is to take 2 gold immediately. Or, if you have at least one unplayed dynasty from your starting 2, you can unlock that dynasty's power. Place your dynasty card over your nation's unique power, or over your other dynasty card. The previous power is no longer in effect and cannot be restored for the rest of the game. We won't cover all 34 dynasty powers in this video, but the designer's nation's FAQ in the description below clarifies their rules. Note that 2 of the dynasties from the 2015 printing of the expansion have incorrect text. The correct text is shown here. If there are no more turmoil cards in the round, you can't take any gold or switch dynasties. There is one additional free action you can take on your turn, before any of the main actions. You can undeploy any number of workers from your buildings and military and place them ready to be used later. This is most commonly done if you would like to buy a war at a lower military strength than your current army. We've now covered all of the actions on your turn in the action phase. During this phase, each player will take a single action from this list on their turn, and then it will be the next player's turn in the player order. After the last player's turn, player 1 takes their next turn. If you can't or don't want to take any of the main actions, flip your player order card to Passed. Once all players have passed, the round will be resolved in the resolution phase. Now that we've explained the main game actions that you'll take on your turns in the action phase, we'll show the beginning and end of each of the 8 rounds. The maintenance phase sets up new cards and events for the round. Advance the round marker to indicate the next round. For round 1, you'll just start on the A space of Age 1, Antiquity. Deal progress cards from the appropriate age deck. For round 1, you'll fill the appropriate number of columns as we showed earlier. For all subsequent rounds, discard all of the cards in the rows that cost 1 or 2 gold. Move all of the cards in the 3 gold row to the 1 gold row. Then deal more cards to fill in the same number of columns as before. This is done even when advancing to a new age, as shown here when dealing the Age 2 cards for round 3. In reverse player order, each player will decide whether to take one of 3 resources, or grow their population. You can choose food, stone, or gold for resources. Take an amount corresponding to your chosen difficulty level, such as 4 for Chieftain. When growing your population, take a worker from either the food track or the stability track and add it to your undeployed workers. If you choose the stability track, adjust your stability immediately. By the way, if a game effect ever makes you return a worker, place them on one of these tracks if possible. If all tracks are covered, just place the worker next to the track and take that worker the next time you grow population. Draw an event card from the appropriate age deck. Place it on the scoreboard. Remove any existing architects from the scoreboard. Add the base architects for player count, plus the architects on the card, if any, to the scoreboard. Remove any existing turmoil cards near the scoreboard. Add a number of turmoil cards equal to the number of available architects near the scoreboard. Now the action phase will begin, and the first player in player order will take an action. Once all players have passed, the round will be resolved in the resolution phase. In production, each player adds up gains and losses for all transactable resources, indicated with circle icons, and then takes or pays from the supply. Be sure to scour your whole player board, and don't forget to account for population growth, advisors, colonies, and completed wonders or natural wonders. It's also a good idea to double-check that your square icons add up to the correct military strength and stability values, especially if you've taken any turmoil. The resource pile is unlimited, so you can improvise if you gain more than the supply. Feel free to take a glorious 50 books tile if you complete a lap around the books track. This is also a good time to clear off any once per round X markers. Now we'll calculate any production losses. If you have negative stability or military, you lose 1 VP per track and 1 book per negative point of each. You never lose any VP if you have 0 VP chips. If your production is negative on food, stone, or gold, but you don't have enough of that resource, you first lose all of the resource, then lose 1 VP. Finally, lose books equal to the difference. If you ever need to pay more books than you have, either through negative book production or running out of another resource, lose 1 VP for books. Then you'll need to make up the difference in any combination of food, stone, or gold. You can only lose 1 VP per round per resource that you are missing. So if you lost any VP in the production step, keep it in mind throughout the rest of the resolution phase, which can also trigger resource losses. Sometimes resources are even lost in the action phase. The same rules apply. After production, reevaluate the player order by comparing military strength. Highest goes first, second highest goes second, and so on. If there's a tie, the player with the higher stability goes earlier. If both are tied, preserve the order from the previous round. Update the discs and pass around the order cards. The new order immediately takes effect for the rest of the steps in this round. Any nation with military less than the value of the war marker will have to pay the resources shown, but each point of stability will avoid losing 1 of that resource. For example, this player has lost the war since their strength is 9 but the war is at 10. Since they have 2 stability, they will lose only 4 stone instead of 6. Any nation losing the war also loses a VP, no matter what their stability is. Resolve the 2 events on the event card, first the top and then the bottom. Any ties using the words most or least are resolved in the most painful way possible. If 2 or more players are tied for most, the benefit applies to none of them. If 2 or more players are tied for least, the drawback applies to all. One special case, any nation that has negative stability or military strength automatically counts as least. In a 5-player game, most, least, passed first, and passed last affect the top or bottom 2 players meeting the condition. But ties are still painful, so anyone tied with the 3rd player does not get the positive effect, and anyone tied with the bottom 2 players also gets the negative effect. These most and least rules also apply for any other card types. Any events where multiple players have a choice are resolved in reverse player order. Most events require all players to lose some food, printed on the event card. Pay this food back to the supply. If any player took turmoil this round, return those cards back to the supply and adjust the stability track. If this was the 2nd round in an age, you'll score VPs for the books track before moving to the next age. Take 1 VP from the supply for each player that is behind you on the books track. Do not count players that you're tied with. Head back to the maintenance phase for the start of the next round. After the 8th round, which is the 2nd round of Age 4, it's time to add up all of the points. You'll include your VP chips, colonies, completed wonders, and natural wonders. For workers deployed on buildings and military, score VPs from left to right. Any workers beyond the number shown on the card won't score. For resources, add up your values of food, gold, stone, books, military, and stability, divide that by 10, and round down. Add up all the VPs, and the player with the most wins. Any ties are resolved by player order. Now you're ready to play your first game of Nations. Let me know how it goes in the comments, or if there's anything that I missed. And if you'd like to see more Nations videos, such as an overview of basic strategy or my card tier lists, I'd love to hear that too. Enjoy, and see you in the next one.